Welcome to Florida's Cannabis News Podcast, a weekly podcast exploring the legal, political, and economic changes to Florida's cannabis industry, covering important news and events for Florida cannabis businesses and professionals. Sit back and relax. Florida's Cannabis News Podcast begins now.
Good morning and happy Friday. Today is March 15th, 2019, and you're tuned into Florida's Cannabis News Podcast. This is your host, David, and I'm here every Friday covering the latest news and events happening in Florida's cannabis industry. Today we have another news-filled episode, so let's dive right into this week's top stories. Today's top story comes out of Tallahassee, where the State House passed SB 182 on Wednesday by a vote of 101 to 11. The bill will now head to Governor Ron DeSantis for signature. So just for a quick background on this story, as some of you may already know, Florida currently prohibits smokable medical cannabis. But in January, Governor Ron DeSantis took a 180 from Rick Scott's administration and gave the Florida legislature a deadline of March 15th to amend Florida law and do away with the state ban on smoking. If the legislature did not act, Governor DeSantis said he would drop the state's appeal of Circuit Judge Karen Grievers' decision last year that allows smokable cannabis. That case is being headed by attorney John Morgan. After DeSantis' call out of the Florida legislature, State Senator Jeff Brandes out of St. Petersburg then introduced the bill titled SB 182 to the Senate. And on March 7th, the 40-member Senate voted in favor of the bill with an overwhelming 34-4 result, with 2 legislators not voting. Senator Brandes' bill does place several conditions on smokable medical cannabis, which we'll go through very quickly. The first is that smokable cannabis will not be available to anyone younger than 18 unless that patient is terminally ill and 2 doctors, one of whom must be a pediatrician, says smoking is the most effective form of treatment for that patient. Second, cannabis cannot be smoked in public or at private businesses subject to the state's cigarette smoking ban. Private property owners would have the right to prohibit smoking on their premises. Fourth, the bill will limit supply to 4 ounces in a 35-day period, but 2.5 ounces can be sold at one time. Fifth, there's also a research component to the bill that secures funding for research in Florida, which I found particularly interesting. I also wanted to make it known that this bill does not allow home grow, which is already an issue that is being litigated in Florida courts. Once Governor DeSantis does sign the bill and regulators roll out the rules, dispensaries will be able to start selling whole flower and pre-rolls, which could be used for juicing the plant or consuming really any way a patient would like. So the patients will now be able to say goodbye to those tedious ceramic pods. And in my opinion, this move brings Florida up to par with other states that have legalized medical cannabis. Originally, the House's version of the bill was stricter than the Senate's version because it included a complete ban on smokable cannabis for patients under 18. But the House on Wednesday, March 13th, passed Senator Brandes' bill with the terminally ill qualifier, thus giving patients under 18 the option to consume smokable cannabis as long as they satisfy the law, which is that 2-doctor requirement I mentioned previously. With this discrepancy in mind, Ray Rodriguez, state representative out of Estero who chairs the Health and Human Services Committee, said he anticipated the House was going to pass the bill as it's been sent over from the Senate. He also explained that Governor Ron DeSantis should anticipate the House passing the Senate's smokable medical marijuana bill and seeing on his desk as early as the end of this week. As predicted, the House on Wednesday did pass the bill by a vote of 101 to 11. During the hearing, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith asked if patients can use the seeds from the flower to grow at home. As I said before, this bill does not allow for home grow, but to answer Representative Smith's question a little bit better, in my opinion, patients shouldn't be finding seeds in their flower. That's sometimes a sign of a bad quality strain. So I don't expect patients to find seeds in their flower, but you never know. A couple other minor but interesting points nonetheless. Ray Rodriguez also explained that police will now have access to an online database where they can verify individuals as valid medical cannabis patients if they're pulled over while possessing their medicine. Another important thing is that the bill also doesn't change the vertical integration requirement, which was set out by Governor Rick Scott and his administration. To wrap this story up, it's really unclear how long it's going to take for smokable cannabis to become available to patients. State health officials would still have to craft rules regulating smokable cannabis, but remember, dispensaries have known about this for a while when DeSantis made his announcement back in January. So in my opinion, I'm going to predict middle of the summer, MMTCs in Florida will start selling whole flower. Head on over to floridapolitics.com for a full breakdown of this story by Jim Rusica. Our second top story of the week comes out of Miami Beach, where City Commissioner Joy Malakoff is suggesting an all-out ban of medical cannabis dispensaries in the city. In November 2016, 80% of Miami Beach residents voted to legalize medical cannabis, and more than 2 years later today, the city has only one dispensary and one commissioner who wants to prevent other dispensaries from opening. Just for reference, that one dispensary is Sutera Wellness Center at 1523 Alton Road for anyone in the Miami Beach area. Commissioner Joy Malakoff suggested to the city planning board this week that the city should consider repealing ordinances that currently regulate medical marijuana treatment centers in Miami Beach. Commissioner Malakoff also suggested that the city planning board should replace the current laws with an ordinance that prohibits any other dispensaries from opening within the city's jurisdiction. This shouldn't come as a surprise if you are in the loop with politics in Miami Beach, because Commissioner Malakoff has made her opinion on medical cannabis dispensaries clear in the past. In 2017, after the passage of state legislation preventing local governments from regulating medical cannabis dispensaries more than they regulate pharmacies, she tried to ban the dispensaries outright of Miami Beach. Beach residents responded on Wednesday, March 13th, when Florida for Care, a nonprofit 501c4, who was actually the catalyst for getting Amendment 2 passed by an overwhelming 71% of the vote, hosted a speak out at Miami Beach City Hall on the third floor, where residents came together and voiced their disagreement with the suggested ban. Main takeaways from the Wednesday, March 13th City Commission meeting. First, Commissioner Malakoff explained that there might be 10,000 strains of cannabis, but that doesn't mean we need 10,000 dispensaries in Miami Beach. She went on to explain that one dispensary is enough for the population of Miami Beach, which is just under 100,000, and she went on to show newspaper ads that said marijuana is more dangerous than you think. She also explained that she received letters that say residents supported the ban. But when she pulled up the newspapers, it reminded me of like the propaganda from Harry Anslinger, and William Randolph Hearst. It was a very weird moment. But just as a reminder, this week's vote was on whether to send her idea to the planning board to review it and decide whether it should be sent back to City Commission. Nothing definite was voted on today. Miami Beach still has their policies in place. But just to touch on one of her points, that one dispensary is enough for their size. Miami Beach might be small to some people, but if you've ever been there, traffic is insane. It's a mission just to get from one side of the city to the other. Miami Beach City Commission does believe in medical cannabis, but anticipating eventual legalization of recreational cannabis is really the heart of the issue. The commissioners wanted to focus the conversation on the future of cannabis in Florida. They're afraid that, if they allow a lot of medical dispensaries in the city, that once Florida becomes recreational, all of those dispensaries will turn into adult use dispensaries. Residents did bring up some great points. This was the most persuasive one, in my opinion. One resident explained that there's drug dealers selling cannabis in condominiums in the black market, and the need for more dispensaries is greater now more than ever to draw these drug dealers out of the black market, clean up the condominiums, and regulating and implementing more dispensaries is meant to stop the illegal drug trafficking. And currently, with the dispensary ban they have in place, and even worse, if they had Joy Malakoff's ban in place, it would help the illegal drug dealers even more. Other residents also explained that delivery isn't enough. The current dispensary there only delivers once in their area. And all of this ban costs patients more money. And for them to have to leave Miami Beach to go get their product, delivery drivers increase traffic and don't contribute to the Miami Beach economy. And with a population of almost 100,000, Miami Beach can be a lucrative market the medical marijuana treatment centers should be able to tap into. The planning board is set to meet March 26th, and of course we will have an update for you next week. But in the meantime, head on over to Brittany Shamus's article in the Miami New Times for all the details. Today's last top story brings us back to Tallahassee, where the medical marijuana Business Association of Florida hosted its 2019 Legislative Policy Conference at Florida State University on Tuesday. The conference ran all day from 8:30 to 5:30 p.m., and here industry stakeholders, leaders, and lawmakers came together to talk about the issues in Florida's cannabis industry. This conference made great timing because we're only 1 week into legislative session. SB 182 is being heard this week, and in general, it's tough to get in front of legislators. So now stakeholders had the opportunity to talk with legislators and voice their concerns in person. Curtis Richardson, the city commissioner and mayor pro tempore Tallahassee, opened the conference and welcomed attendees. The conference was then filled with panelists ranging from Holly Bell, Florida's new director of cannabis, Kim Rivers, CEO of TrueLeave, and Florida's agricultural commissioner Nikki Fried, among others. The panels and the attendees discussed what rules and regulations will pass this session. They also spoke about upcoming changes to Florida's cannabis laws and more. Something I thought that was interesting at the conference was the emphasis of Florida's hemp program. Just to give you a quick recap on where we are on that, in late December of 2018, the federal Farm Bill was passed and signed, which allowed states to create their own hemp programs and submit a plan to the USDA to run the program. Right now, we're in the second week of March. We're in session. Florida has 3 hemp bills that have been filed, and those can be monitored online. This process takes 60 days, and once the 60 days passes, Director Bell hopes to have a hemp bill that will be approved and will be given to the Department of Agriculture to implement. But until that process is done, we don't have an exact timeline. Director Bell explained that she's ready to implement the program. She just needs a bill put in front of her. So in the meantime, I'll certainly keep you posted about any movement with Florida's hemp program. But just to give you her top priorities, the first one is to provide education and to get a bill through the legislator. Second, she wants to start to build out the infrastructure that will support the bill, which includes getting a USDA plan together, getting rules written, and continuing talking to people and educating them about Florida's hemp program. Head to floridapolitics.com for a full breakdown of this story. As always, we will have the stories all linked down below in the show notes for your convenience. And we also have all the news we cover on our Twitter account, which is _FL Cannabis News. So head on over there for more information if you want throughout the week. Next Thursday, March 21st at 5:30 p.m., Cannabis Lab is hosting a marketing and cannabis event at the WeWork in Miami Beach at 429 Lenox Avenue. Cannabis Lab, for those of you who are unaware, is a law, accounting, and business professional services organization that brings together the best and brightest to exchange ideas and learn and grow in the cannabis space. Cannabis Lab hosts monthly meetings across South Florida, and you can get tickets or join on their website, joinclab.com/membership, which I will have linked below in the show notes. So, cool event. Go on and check it out. This Sunday, March 17th, the Lift the Band Tour is heading to Doral to bring you another educational event with panelists and networking. The Lift the Band Tour is a cannabis educational event series that takes place in cities across Florida that have banned dispensaries. The panelists this Sunday will be a cannabis doctor, city officials, and local activists to discuss the medical benefits of cannabis, the city ban, and to voice general opinions. The event will take place at Tripping Animals Brewing at 2685 Northwest 105th Avenue, Doral, Florida 33172. And it will be happening from 12:30 to 4 p.m. For more information about the event, just go to facebook.com and search Lift the Band Tour Cannabis Educational Event. And for your convenience, I will have the Facebook event linked below in the show notes. I've been to these events before. They're very, very helpful. Great networking opportunity and the chance to ask panelists questions, which doesn't come that often. So go check it out for a great time. This Sunday, March 17th from noon to 2 p.m., Knox Medical is hosting an event called The Bold Truth About CBD Oil at their North Miami Beach location. Dr. Safia Lin will be speaking about CBD in general and their medicinal values and answer attendees' questions about cannabis. The event is located at 175 Northwest 167th Street, Miami, Florida, 33169. So head on over this Sunday for a couple hours of education and learning more about CBD. Hope to see you there. That's it for this week's Florida's top cannabis news and events. If you have any stories or events you'd like us to share, head on over to our Twitter account _FL Cannabis News, or email us at floridacannabisnewspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for staying up to date with Florida's cannabis industry. I'll be back here again with you next week for another episode of Florida's Cannabis News Podcast. Have a great weekend.